Picture this, it's 1998, the gaming industry is currently obsessed with extreme everything. We've got high-octane mascots, hyper-violent shooters, and arcade sports that demand your pulse to stay at a steady 160 beats per minute. Then, a game arrives that sounds like a military manual written by a philosopher, tactical espionage action. On paper, this shouldn't have worked. The core gameplay loop involves standing perfectly still behind a crate for 45 seconds while a man in a green uniform walks in a circle. In any other era, this would have been a walking simulator with a budget, but by slapping that specific pseudo-intellectual label on the box, Konami pulled off the greatest marketing heist in the history of the medium. They convinced the generation of adrenaline junkies that doing nothing was actually a high-stakes tactical decision. They didn't call it a stealth game because stealth sounds passive. They called it action, but they redefined what the word meant. In this world, the action isn't the moment you pull the trigger. It's the 5 minutes of agonising silence that leads up to it. It's the math of the vision cone, the realisation that your greatest enemy isn't a super soldier, but a 90-degree field of view and the sound of your own footsteps on a metal grating. It turned the PlayStation from a toy into a piece of high-tech surveillance equipment, proving that the most intense moments aren't found in the explosions, but in the gaps between them.
The critics agree Metal Gear Solid is an absolute masterpiece. Games just don't look any better than this. The best reason yet to own a PlayStation. Metal Gear Solid by Konami.
We aren't just looking at a game, we're looking at the moment the PlayStation grew up. By the late 90s, the hardware was showing its age. The textures were shimmering, the draw distance was shrinking, and the developers were hitting a ceiling. While the mascot wars were still raging, a new wave of titles emerged that used those hardware limitations as a massive strength. If you can't render a whole city, render a claustrophobic hallway and tell the player that being seen is a death sentence. This is the era of the professional ghost. We're going to dive into the trinity that define this genre, the cinematic philosophy of Metal Gear Solid, the vertical ninja fantasy of Tenchu Stealth Assassins, and the gadget-heavy grit of Syphon Filter. We're going to look at how these games use the DualShock vibration, the memory card's data, and even the physical packaging of the game to break the fourth wall and pull you into a world of global conspiracies and bioweapons. This was the year that sneaking became the most prestigious genre on the console, and it all started with a cardboard box and a dream. In almost any other genre, a minimap is a convenience, a way to find a shop or the next quest marker. In this world, the radar is the protagonist. The Soliton radar in Metal Gear Solid didn't just show you where the walls were, it visualised the enemy's consciousness. Those blue vision cones were a revolutionary piece of game design that turned a 3D environment into a manageable, top-down map problem. It was a brilliant way to solve the death problem of early 3D. Because the PlayStation 1 struggled with wide open spaces and precise camera control, the developers gave you a God view of the guard's intentions. You weren't just guessing if a soldier could see you from 50 feet away, you were calculating the exact pixel where safety ended and the exclamation mark began. This created a unique psychological state. You'd spend half the game looking at a tiny circle in the corner of the screen rather than the beautiful cinematic polygons in the centre. It turned the player into a data processor, making the tactical part of the title feel literal. You were navigating a world of information where the most important resource wasn't your health bar, but the knowledge of exactly where the guard's gaze was about to land. We usually give Hideo Kojima the crown for inventing the modern stealth game, but if we're being historically accurate, we have to talk about Tenchu Stealth Assassins. Released months before Snake ever stepped foot on Shadow Moses, Tenchu was the first game to prove that 3D stealth wasn't just a gimmick, it was a vibe. While Metal Gear was obsessed with Hollywood blockbusters, Tenchu was obsessed with the verticality of feudal Japan. It traded the high-tech radar for the key meter, a mystical proximity sensor that pulls faster the closer an enemy got. It was a more organic, stressful version of the vision cone, but the real game changer was the grapple hook. In an era where 3D movement was often stiff and tanky, Tenchu gave you the ability to exit a situation vertically. You weren't just hiding behind crates, you were squatting on the thatched roof, looking down at the guard like a judgmental gargoyle. It established the ninja fantasy as a legitimate mechanical framework. The idea that if you're doing your job correctly, the enemy doesn't even know that they're in a video game until the cinematic kill animation triggers. The contrast between Tenchu and the games that followed highlights the two different paths the genre could have taken. Tenchu was about the predator. You were faster, more agile, and arguably more dangerous than the guards, provided you kept the shadows on your side. It was a game of empowerment through invisibility. If you messed up, you could actually grapple away, reset the AI, and try again. It treated the stealth as a predatory sport. Then you look at the spy reality of the late 90s, where the protagonist is often the most vulnerable person in the room. In this branch of the genre, the environment is your primary enemy. A puddle of water isn't just a texture, it's a noise trap. A spotlight isn't just lighting, it's a hard wall you can't pass. Tenchu taught us how to hunt, but the broader tactical espionage movement was more interested in teaching us how to survive. It replaced the grapple hook with a thermal sensor and the katana with a silenced pistol, shifting the focus from the coolness of the kill to the professionalism of the bypass.
Why? Why? I loved you.
What is it?
My gun. Give it to me. She's part of me. Everyone's here now. Okay, hero. Set me free.
Goodbye.
Then the world changed. When Metal Gear Solid dropped in 1998, it didn't just move the needle, it broke the machine. This was the moment the industry realised that the PlayStation wasn't just a console, it was a film projector. Kojima famously insisted on using in-game engine graphics for his cutscenes rather than the flashy, pre-rendered FMVs that were popular at the time. It was a risky move, but it resulted in a seamless experience where the game never stopped being a movie. This was the cinematic hijack. Every camera angle was deliberate, every zoom timed for maximum tension. It used the hardware's jittery, low-res textures to create a cold, industrial atmosphere that felt more real than the polished CG of its competitors. But the genius wasn't the visuals, it was the acting. Despite the polygons being so low-res that characters didn't even have eyes, The voice acting and the body language conveyed a level of drama the industry hadn't seen. It proved that espionage wasn't just about hiding in a box, it was about the heavy, philosophical weight of being a soldier in a world that had moved past you. It wasn't a game you just played, it was a mission you experienced.
I can see into your mind. So, you like Suikoden? So, you like Azure Dreams? You like Castlevania, don't you? You enjoy role-playing games. I see that you enjoy Konami games. You have not said often. You are somewhat reckless. I can read you like an open book.
One of the most radical aspects of tactical espionage action was its refusal to stay inside the television. Because the genre was built on the concept of information warfare, the developers decided that your physical living room was part of the battlefield. We have to talk about the Psycho Mantis fight, not just because it's a classic moment, but because it was a mechanical assault on the player. When the game read your memory card to comment on your love for Castlevania or Sokoden, it wasn't just a parlour trick. It was the game proving that it knew just as much about you as you did about the guards on screen. This culminated in the famous Merrill's frequency puzzle. In an era before every home had a high-speed internet connection to look up a walkthrough, the game told you that the frequency you needed was on the back of the CD case. It forced you to physically stand up, walk over to the plastic jewel case sitting on your carpet, and scan the screenshots on the back to find a tiny image of the codec screen. It was a brilliant tactical way to make the espionage feel real. It turned the player into a field agent, blurring the line between the digital mission and the physical world in a way that modern games, with their infinite menus and cloud saves, rarely attempt.
What happened?
I'm fine.
Okay. Let's go.
Come on, Mr. Foxhound. The commander is waiting.
While the Japanese developers were focusing on ninjas and philosophical clones, a team in Bend, Oregon was building the American answer to the stealth craze, Syphon Filter. If Metal Gear was a high-concept art-house thriller, Syphon Filter was the gritty 90s cable TV action movie. It introduced us to Gabe Logan, a man whose run cycle looked like he was perpetually trying to find a bathroom, but whose efficiency with a silenced 9mm was unmatched. Syphon Filter shifted the balance of tactical espionage action further towards the action side. It moved the camera behind the shoulder, giving us a more traditional third-person perspective that felt more intuitive for Western audiences raised on shooters. But it didn't sacrifice the tactics. It introduced gadgets like the legendary viral taser, which allowed you to set enemies on fire from a distance, a move that was arguably less stealthy and more war crime, but it gave the genre a visceral, aggressive edge. It proved that you could have the tension of a spy mission without the slow, methodical pacing of its peers, carving out a niche for the action stealth hybrid that would eventually dominate the industry.
Wait, stop! Don't shoot! Do you have something less painful, maybe?
A crossbow?
Too messy.
A grenade launcher?
Ouch.
How about the taser?
Yeah, taser wouldn't be bad. It might leave a little rash mark.
Syphon Filter 2 is rated M for mature.
Excuse us, Mr. Logan.
The genius of this genre isn't just the sneaking, it's in the screw-up. In a pure stealth game, being spotted is a failure, a reason to hit the reset button. In tactical espionage action, being spotted is just the beginning of a new gameplay rhythm. The transition from the sneaking phase to the alert phase is one of the most iconic audio-visual shifts in gaming history. That sharp, piercing exclamation mark sound and the sudden shift to frantic, industrial music isn't a game over screen. it's a change in genre. Suddenly, the map problem is over, and the survival instinct kicks in. You have to navigate the map in real time, looking for the vents, the lockers, or the shadows that will trigger the evasion timer. This cycle, sneak, alert, evade, caution, created a perfect tension and release loop. It allowed the player to feel the adrenaline of a high-speed chase before rewarding them with the quiet, heart-pounding relief of hiding under a desk while footsteps patter nearby. It turned the action into a consequence of pure tactics, making every successful bypass feel like a hard-won victory, and every failure feel like an opportunity for a cinematic escape.
Hurry and get dressed, now!
Mr. Ambassador, as you can see, you have no choice. And your wife's life means nothing to me.
Mama!
You had better realize this. Understand?
Because the PSX index is about documenting the entire library, we have to acknowledge that for every Metal Gear, there were half a dozen games trying to catch the same lightning in a much smaller bottle. Take Mission Impossible 1999, a game that tried to translate the multi-objective complexity on the Nintendo 64 version, but ended up being a clunky, fascinating mess of disguised social stealth and awkward platforming. Or Chase the Express, known as North America as Covert Ops Nuclear Dawn, which is essentially Die Hard on a train. It's a B-movie take on the genre that trades high philosophy for what if we put a terrorist plot on a moving locomotive? Then you have the truly weird experiments, like in Cold Blood, a game that tried to mix the slow burn puzzles of an adventure game for the high stakes gunplay of a spy thriller. These deep cuts represent the creative chaos of the era. They weren't masterpieces, they were barely functional, but they showed a hardware-wide obsession with the spy aesthetic. Everyone wanted a piece of the tactical pie, and whether they were using the cardboard boxes or high-tech disguises, these games collectively built a foundation for the stealth mechanics we see in almost every modern open-world game today.
Wait here till I clear the way.
Remember, we need the AFS so we can communicate. And don't forget my mine.
Don't worry, I'll be right back.
The DNA of the tactical espionage action didn't just stay on the PlayStation 1, it became the blueprint of the modern AAA experience. We often think of stealth as its own isolated corner of the library, but the lessons learned here, how to manage enemy awareness, how to use sound as a mechanic, and how to reward the player for not shooting, now live in everything from The Last of Us to Uncharted. Before this era, action meant one thing, aggression, but the PlayStation 1 taught the industry that the most powerful a player can feel is when they are completely undetected in a room full of people who want them dead. It introduced the idea of the dynamic sandbox, where the AI isn't just a target on a rail, but a living obstacle that reacts to the environment. When you knocked on a wall in 1998 to lure a guard away, you weren't just playing a game, you were participating in a simulation. That shift from binary gameplay to systemic choices is the real legacy of the cardboard box. It proved that players were smart enough to appreciate the invisible mechanics and that a game could be a worldwide blockbuster even if the main character spent half the time looking for a vent to crawl through.
It's an extremely sensitive covert operation. You'll be one man against an entire squad of high-tech special ops. If you want to survive, you gotta have brains. You have to be in peak physical condition. The fate of the free world is in your hands, soldier. Failure is not an option.
Sir, aren't these tests kind of easy?
Suicide mission.
Metal Gear Solid.
Ultimately, the what is of a tactical espionage action comes down to the feeling of a professional vulnerability. It's the realisation on the map, not because you have the biggest gun, but because you are the only one who knows the truth of the situation. It's a genre that demands patience in an industry built on speed, and it rewards that patience with the type of tension that a traditional shooter can never replicate. The original PlayStation era was the moment we stopped being players and started being operatives. It was a time when a simple explanation point could cause a genuine physical reaction, and when a pixelated hero could deliver a 10-minute monologue about the nature of war that felt more profound than anything in a movie theatre. Whether you're a ghost in the shadows of feudal Japan or a spy infiltrating a nuclear disposal site, the legacy of these games is written in the silence. They taught us that while the action is what gets you in the door, it's the tactics that keep you alive. And if you've managed to evade the patrol and reach the end of this episode, now is the time to save your progress. Hit subscribe and like the video to lock in your mission data, and drop a comment below with your favourite PS1 stealth moment. Was it the taser in Syphon Filter, or the first time Psycho Mantis read your mind? If you're ready for the next briefing, the full PSX Index playlist is on screen now. We're documenting all 1,278 games, staying out of sight and on the mission.
What's wrong? Snake!
Before I go, a quick thank you to the people helping support the channel. Massive thanks to Joe Peacock, Ross McKellar and Callum MacDonald for becoming members and helping keep the PSX Index rolling. Your support genuinely helps me spend more time making these videos and less time worrying about how I'm going to fit them around everything else. Thank you for being a part of the archive. This has been Parasine. The Index continues.